Hi, this is Tarra Bercegeay, and this is my Boise State University Masters in Educational Technology reflective video, a component of my culminating activity for my final portfolio class, EdTech 592. The objective of this video is to show my growth in the MET program, demonstrating what I have learned and who it is that I have become, as well the processes I now incorporate as an instructional designer in my own learning and instruction. A key component to demonstrating content knowledge is the ability to create instructional materials and learning environments using a variety of systems approaches. In EdTech 531, Teaching and Learning in Virtual Worlds, I explored a unique approach to learning and teaching using a virtual world called Second Life. EdTech 531 and 532 are the only synchronous courses offered where students gather in a physical space as avatars, allowing for real-time communication and interaction. This creates a greater sense of social presence than any other class in the MET program. In this class, I learned how 3D virtual worlds like Second Life are used as educational learning environments. The general objective of my Second Life project, From Games to Movies, was to design a synchronous interactive machinima exhibit with a self-guided lesson using a student-centered approach emphasizing peer-to-peer interactions. To achieve this, I placed interactive note cards in front of each exhibit to provide information-driven scenarios in which the participants, while exploring their virtual surroundings, could lead their learning. The interactive tools I used in this course were a presentation screen for the machinima movies, picture boards describing the movies, a clapboard displaying note cards that automatically handed out content when touched, inventory folders as drop boxes, and an exit survey which assessed participants' attitudes towards the virtual learning environment. To encourage communication and collaboration, participants were allowed to comment and interact with each other using their instant message chat function. This EdTech 531 project was designed to encourage social interaction while enabling immersive and meaningful experiences. The advantage of this type of synchronous communication includes the ability to hold live simulations, role-playing, and interactive presentation activities. As a result of creating this project, I believe creating effective virtual worlds allows for students to visualize learning scenarios through active engagement. As educators, demonstrating knowledge of content pedagogy allows for effective implementation of educational technologies and processes based on contemporary content and pedagogy. While taking EdTech 506 Graphic Design for Learning, I discovered that designing graphics properly is a key element in designing web pages that not only look appealing but also perform responsibly. EdTech 506 is a class intended to enhance MET students' abilities in theory, graphic design, and selection of instructional media. The final project for this class was multi-purposed. Students were expected to incorporate their weekly project designs into instructional content in the form of a website based on 3 or more lesson plans that make up a unit of instruction along with graphic images that delivered an instructional message. This final project includes a collection of our weekly projects, a unit of instruction, lesson plans, and a justification paper. The justification paper explains the visual design process in detail and the rationale for the page layout. After completing the written components of the project, I chose to create a Weebly website that I could present as instructional content to my video production classes. My site introduced students to the process of producing a public service announcement. In its entirety, the project presents an overview of the objectives, procedures, materials, media, visuals, and assessment for the course, as well as a website that guides students through a particular assignment. Creating this final project allowed me to analyze my students' needs. It helped to design and develop the course materials and implement the course with my students. It was beneficial to work on a final product that I could utilize with my students to assist them in producing their first public service announcement. The students' completed work was excellent. I attribute the high production value of their PSAs and the ultimate success of their work to having implemented what I learned in EdTech 506 into the instructional materials, including my final project website that I provided to the students. In a knowledge-centered learning environment, educators facilitate learning by creating, using, evaluating, and managing effective learning environments. In EdTech 536, Digital Game Design for K-12 Classrooms, students learn how to design and develop mobile games. Our class used Game Salad, which provides an easy-to-use platform to design and publish games on the internet. For my final assignment, I designed a prototype for an educational game called Winslow Village. Set in medieval times, this game utilizes instruction in game mechanics as a way to present internet safety lessons to children. Before I designed my game, I went through a planning stage where I developed 3 documents: a game design document allowing me to define and conceptualize the scope of the game, a storyboard to diagram the gameplay environment, and a lesson plan for teachers. These design documents were extremely useful as they became my working mini prototype, giving me a chance to experiment and revise my ideas. I developed the game as a first-person narrative where the player is the main character, a heroic avatar. To help the player find their way through the game landscape, I also included sub-characters called Winslow Villagers to assist the player with feedback. Within this game-based learning application, players work towards a goal. They advance by choosing actions and experience the consequence of those actions. The first level of the game is set up so that the players have an opportunity to make mistakes in a risk-free, fun setting through experimentation while they actively learn and practice the correct way to use the internet. To encourage player achievement, I added several motivational features. For instance, players can earn gold coins for understanding how to be safe on the internet, and they can also unlock coins by defeating evil cyber bullies. The experience of designing and playtesting a mobile game in EdTech 536 provided me with the opportunity to better understand how to develop and create engaging learning experiences. A key component to demonstrating professional knowledge and skills is for educators to design, develop, implement, and evaluate technology-rich learning environments within a supportive community of practice. Our first assignment in EdTech 501, Introduction to Educational Technology, was to create a learning log. Learning logs are used for students' reflections on the material they are learning. This type of journal is in common use among most academic disciplines. The learning log I created continued to serve as a digital repository as I advanced through the MET program. I used the log to post assignments and record information related to coursework and EdTech research. Perhaps the most valuable elements of the learning log, though incredibly time-consuming, are the reflections, which have allowed me to more clearly focus on what I have learned and on greater issues than the assignment at hand. The learning log is a structured space that I created in Google Blogger, where I record thoughts on what I have read and discussed in my EdTech classes. Web 2.0 tools, such as Blogger, are effective computer-based technologies for creating and displaying educational resources. The act of writing about thinking has helped me to become a better thinker and a better writer. A learning log is the first project that I assign to all of my students. Students use them as their online portfolios, and I use them to assess their learning. Once they have created their blog, my students post a minimum of once a week with each entry including commentary and live links to one or more relevant sites. Each entry must clearly cite sources of ideas, with the final entry providing a summary and notice that the blog is ending. By reading student logs and delivering descriptive feedback on what my students are doing well and suggestions for improvement, I have incorporated the learning log as a powerful tool for learning. The course that admittedly encouraged me to take a closer look at my instructional design objectives was EdTech 503, Instructional Design for Educators. There are different schools of thought on how best to design courses, whether mobile, online, or otherwise, and one very useful model for design is represented by the acronym ADDIE. Learning instructional design concepts, such as the ADDIE model, has proven invaluable for me as I become an efficient designer. For my final instructional design project, I designed a unit that would teach a learner how to film a 30-second video and post it to Vimeo after reviewing an internet safety lesson. My project features all of the activities an instructor would need to lead students through the process of creating their own video, including an instructor guide, learner and assessment materials, and a formative evaluation plan. These materials serve as a great example of how to use scaffolding to support student learning. The design process has already begun to impact my teaching practice. In the future, I will use more design in my planning, specifically when presenting important concepts or skills to my students. As I continue to use the latest technology while integrating online concepts into all areas of instruction, I find myself far more vested in ensuring that technology is integrated through an instructional design process, as it requires careful thought as to why learners use technology and what the intended objectives truly are. Not only has this course improved my personal teaching practice, it has given me a strong foundation from which to measure other instruction. I will be able to distinguish quality programming because I have a fundamental understanding of the components of instructional design. This will have a positive effect on my professional work in the field of educational technology.